So I almost forgot to do this. I wanted to prepare you for counting the Omer, which we will start next week. If you take a look in the Art Scroll Chumash, this is on page 684. This is chapter 23, verse 15. As usual, what I want to do with you is look at the words carefully and see what the words say, and then note perhaps difficulties with understanding what it says, and then we'll explore it in some depth. So now, I'm going to, what shall I do here? All right, I guess I'll read the English because you have the English, and then if there's a need to change the English translation, I'll tell you. You shall count for yourselves from the morrow of the rest day. So that means there's some rest day or other, and the next day after that, start there. From the day that you bring the Omer of the waving, which in fact is the second day of Pesach, 7 weeks. They shall be complete until the morrow of the 7th week shall you count. 50 days. And you shall offer a new meal offering, etc. So the first thing that everybody notices is, let's see now, how much am I supposed to count? Well, it says 7 weeks they shall be complete. 7 times 7, where's my calculator? 49. But then it says 50 days. So that does look like a contradiction. But it's worse than that, if you can imagine being worse than that, because let's take the previous phrase. 7 weeks they shall be complete until the morrow of the 7th week shall you count. So let's see. Let's suppose the first day in which you count is Tuesday. So when you count Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, that's 1 week. That's 7. The next Tuesday is 8. The next Tuesday is 15. The next Tuesday is 22, right? When you get finally to 49, that will be what day of the week? Lost you. Okay, let's start. Yeah, Monday. When we get to 49, it'll be Monday, right? That'll be 7 complete weeks. Now the Torah tells you count until the morrow of the 7th week. So, if the last day, the 49th day, is the Monday, the morrow of the 7th week is that following Tuesday. Okay. Now, until in English and ad in Hebrew is ambiguous. When you say until X, you can mean until and including X, or you can mean until up to, but not including X. So, for example, if I say cook until well done, that means you keep cooking, and the food that comes out had better be well done. But if I say you're eligible until your 30th birthday, on your 30th birthday, you're ineligible. So when you have a word until, the first thing you have to ask is, what we ask in Hebrew, ad b'chal or ad lo ad b'chal. Is it until and including the thing it's going up to? Or is it until and excluding the thing it's going up to? Now, when you make that distinction and try to put it into the verse, it's difficult either way. It's difficult either way. Let's see, count 7 full weeks until the day after the 7th week. Now let's suppose until means until and including. So then, until the morrow of the 7th week already gets you 50 days. Before the word's 50 days. It's already a contradiction. They say to me, okay, Rabbi, I hear that. So now let's just do it the other way. Let's say until means until but not including. Then it's totally redundant. Count 7 weeks up to the day after the 7 weeks and don't count that one. What did you add to telling me to count 7 weeks? Like, no, that's it. When you count 49, you're counting up to 50 but not counting 50. So there's absolutely there's no information there. So we need to understand what is going on here. There are two ways to look at this. And maybe the philosophical perspective will help us to understand what's going on in the verses. Let's see. Pesach starts the first day, okay, of the Seder at night. All the important mitzvos of the holiday. Daytime, okay, you daven, say the musaf, say halal. Fine. The next day you start a 49-day count. That's a mitzvah. Sefiras Haomer is a mitzvah. Okay, now let's see. Because what comes after that? What comes after Sefiras Haomer? Could it be Yom Kippur? Is that what? Oh, no. Wait a second. Rosh Hashanah is before that. Right. So there's not just Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. No. Oh, there's another holiday. Right. Called Shavuos. Right. So the calendar has the first day of Pesach, and then count 49, and then the next thing is Shavuos, and after that Rosh Hashanah, after that is Yom Kippur. It's just that's the order in which the holidays go. You could think of it that way. Shavuos just happens to be the thing that happens after you count the 49 days after Pesach. You did the mitzvah of counting 49. That happens when it's finished. Close the book. Open the book to a new chapter. What's next? Shavuos. Okay, we'll celebrate the giving of the Torah. Here's another way to think about it. A much more subtle way. When you're counting the 49, you're setting up a total of 50. And you're setting up the total of 50 by counting 49 and not counting the 50th. But the count of 49 is to set up a total of 50, 49 of which you count and one of which you don't count. In other words, when you're counting the Omer and you say, today's day 16. 16 out of how many? 49. It could be 16 out of 49 if you think of the counting as separate, independent, detached, with its own brackets to the calendar, and then Shavuos just happens to come afterwards. Or no, it's 16 out of 50. There's a unit of 50, 49 of which we count, and one of which we don't count. Now let's see if we have any indications, any evidence of which way to think about it. Every holiday in the Jewish calendar is fixed by a calendar date, the such and such day of the such and such month, except yeah, I'm sorry, right. Leave Shabbat out of it, right? I'm thinking of right, except Shavuos. Why not? Why isn't Shavuos fixed to a date in the calendar? Because it's the day after the count of 49. That's how it's fixed. Count 49 days and then make Shavuos. And the day in the calendar depends upon how long the intervening months are, whether they're 29-day months or 30-day months. And that means that the date of Shavuos, when we establish the month on the basis of sighting the moon, the date of Shavuos could be either the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th of Sivan. It varied from year to year. It didn't have a fixed calendar date. The day of Shavuos is fixed by being the day after the count of 49. That indicates that the 49 isn't just a separate mitzvah of counting. No. Keep track of what you're doing. Pay attention to the days. Don't forget. Don't miscalculate. And when you finish 49, you finish that, close that book. Now you go on to the next project, which could have been Yom Kippur, except that it's not Yom Kippur. There's things in between. But then it's very funny that the 49-day count fixes which day is Shavuos. Why should that be the determinant? Unlike any other day in the calendar. Why should that be the determinant? So it begins to sound like what's going on here is the 49 days link the first day of Pesach to Shavuos. That's what they're doing there. It's a linkage to the extent that the 49 days count determines which day is going to be Shavuos. Okay, if that's the right pshat, as we say, if that's the right understanding of the process, let's go back to the words. Thank you very much.
What does the Omer have to do with it? Live Omer.
Okay, interesting question. I'm in the middle of an idea, and I'll get to that if I have time. Let's go back to the words. So now we said, count 7 weeks, complete weeks, until the day after the 7th week. How are we going to count and say until now? Until including or not including?
Including 49.
The day after the 7th week. That's day number 50. That's day number 50.
Right.
That's true.
Are we counting?
We're not counting that one.
So the until is excluding that day, that morrow day. We asked, if it's excluding, it's totally redundant. When you count 49, it means count up to 50, but don't count 50.
No same time.
What's that?
No same time. We're doing it for that day.
Okay, that's the point that I'm making. Well, you have a little bit of advantage because you had a little more experience than these guys have. Right? It means when you say 16, what are you counting towards? Well, I'm told to count until 50. Count until 50. Okay, so I'm counting towards 50. Only the until is count until and don't include. Okay, fine. I won't include it. But my mental set is to count to get to 50, not to count to get to 49, close the book and do something else. Okay. Now, what about the words 50 days in the verse? So here your English translator did you a favor. Though I didn't stress it when I was reading it. Let's look again at verse 16. Until the morrow of the 7th day you shall count, and he put in a comma. So you read it, until the morrow of the 7th day you shall count, comma, pause, wait, 50 days. Meaning don't read, count 50 days. Don't read it that way. That's wrong. And in fact, the Trupp confirmed what he says with the comma. It means when you count 7 full weeks. You're counting the 7 full weeks is counting towards, aimed at the day after the 49, but you're not going to count the day of 49, comma. And when you do that, the result is 50 days. 49 of which you counted, and 1 of which you didn't count. This is based on Rashi. Okay? So now, what you have is a process and an outcome. Here's very simple. You count 49 days, and the result is the next day is Shavuos. It determines what day is going to be Shavuos. But in spiritual terms, there's a lot going on. So, we are told that the Jews were rescued. We said this when we went through the Haggadah. The Jews were rescued when they were because they were in danger of being so totally assimilated into the Egyptian degradation that there wouldn't have been anybody left to rescue. Chishev Saketz, cut it short, read the verse from the covenant of the pieces in the shortest possible way for the 400 years. Because, this is what the Midrash says, they had descended into 49 gates of Tumah, of defilement. Well, there are only 50. So for 49, there's only one way to go, and that's out. So before we were in danger of falling into the 50th and being excluded and eliminated, Kadosh Baruch Hu took us out. We were in an extremely low state of affairs. What happened on the first night was that Kadosh Baruch Hu raised us up. We did participate because on the day before the Seder, we did offer the paschal sacrifice, we did do circumcision. We did participate, but He raised us up out of that degraded state to the point where we could celebrate our freedom and we could actually physically leave. But what Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you that you didn't earn can't be permanent. You have to earn it. So, after the first day, He returned us to the state prior and said, now you climb out. You climb out. And that's what the 49 days are about. The 49 days are about climbing out of the gates of defilement. Climbing out of the gates of defilement. And as the Boston Rebbe of Yerushalayim points out, there's something very interesting here. Well, maybe now we should take a look in the Siddur. So I'll tell you this, then get the Siddur. So now, when you talk about Tumah, defilement, above that there are two levels. The immediate level above that is Tahara, which is purity. That removes the defilement. But it leaves you in an intermediary state. Beyond that is Kedusha, is holiness. So really, what we need to do is have 49 double transitions. From Tumah to Tahara, from the Tahara to Kedusha. And it's accomplished in 49 days. So each day enables us to perform a double transition. That's a chesed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it requires our effort. Now, if you take a look, let's take out the Siddurim, and I'll show you in the text that's said there. Well, of course, it depends on whether you say it or not. You guys are interested in shortcuts, but if you say all the long stuff, you'll see a hint to this quite clearly, I think. Thank you very much.
The guidance is even shorter.
Okay, here's Ma'arif. Here's There we go. Sefiras Haomer. Okay. Is
282 in this center.
yeah, I'm just looking for the. Okay, I guess this. Yeah, so 280. I have 285. I think 285 with the gray part. So I said this. You don't say it, but it's the last paragraph in the gray part. Oh man. Master of the universe, you commanded us through Moses, your servant, to count the Omer, in order to cleanse us from our encrustation. How do you like that? Not a bad word. Here it's to purify us, l'taharenu, from the klipos and from tumah. That's what we talked about, the transition from the defilement to purity. From the contamination. As you have written in your Torah, you are to count tomorrow, the rest day, etc., the whole quotation that we went through, 50 days, so that the souls of your people Israel be cleansed of their contamination. That's tumah. Be cleansed from the tumah. Therefore, may be your will, Hashem, our God of our forefathers, that the merit of the Omer count that I have counted today, that I may be corrected, whatever blemish I have caused in a certain Sefira, whatever I've done wrong there should be wiped out. May I be cleansed, now watch this, cleansed and sanctified. Aha! Up till now you had cleansed 3 times. That was taking off tumah. Now it adds also sanctified. This is what I told you. There's a double transition going on. First from tumah to tahara, and then from tahara to kedusha. That's an extra element. The holiness of above, and through this may abundant bounty all the worlds, may it correct our lives, spirits, and souls from all sediment and all blemish, may cleanse us and sanctify us. Look how beautifully this is constructed. It's tumah, 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 and kedusha also, at the end, which you didn't have at the beginning. So the truth is, like the Rabbi here says, there's a double transition going on, and that's the challenge. The challenge is to make the transition from the state of tumah doubly to free ourselves from the tumah and to bring us up to the kedusha. Now, if you turn to the next page, 286, you have all the 50 of them, or 49 of them. If you go to the end of each row, you have either white or gray, 2 words. Chesed, Shema Chesed. Gvura Shema Chesed. Tivera Shema Chesed. Go down to 7, you go to 8, and you get then Sorry, 10. Then you get the next Maimah. Chesed Shebagvura, so and so. Chesed Sefiras. Doubles. They're all doubles. What's going on? What's going on is that each day is dedicated to, each week is dedicated to one of the 7 fundamental characteristics of the way in which God interacts with the world, Sefiros. And then each day is another repetition of going through all 7, going through them one at a time, so that you have, let's think that A is the name of the week, and A, B, C, D, E, F, G are the names of all the different 7 characteristics. So you start off, the first day is A in A, and the second is B in A, and C in A, and D in A, F in A, G in A, and then the next one is A and B, and B and B, and C and B, and D and B, and E and B, and F and G and G and B. And you go down, so you get 49 combinations. Now the combinations mean that A and B versus B and A are 2 different things. But that way you get designations of each of the 49. And these are designations of what needs to be addressed, what needs to be improved, what needs to be rectified, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be perfected on each day. And this, I think, helps to explain something which I have not seen explained in any other way. Perhaps you'll know ways to explain this. I base myself in the Sefer Chinuch now, but he raises it, and the problem exists for him. We're counting towards Shavuos. Well, some of you probably are aware that the nations of the world don't do it this way. How many shopping days left until something or other? 16 shopping days. Next day, 15, only 14 left. 13, only down to 12. They count down. They don't count up. Why are we counting up? So, Sefer Chinuch says, because we know there's 49 to count, and we are marking the passing of each day. Because we're counting up, I'm saying now, we're counting up to make a total of 49. We're not just ripping out the time in between us and then. It's our count of 49 that makes the possibility of the 50th to operate. Okay, so we're counting up. Very good. When we're counting up, we're counting the day that goes by. Well, let's see now. If we're counting the day that goes by, at what time of day should we count it? Imagine you have the calendar, with a page for each day. When do you rip off the calendar day? At the end of the day, right? Not at the beginning of the day. Yeah. That's today! Hello! Don't rip it off! Wait until we get to the end. So why do we count at the beginning of the day? If we're counting the days that are going by, it seems to me we ought to count each day at the end of the day. Sefer Chinuch doesn't mention that question. I haven't heard anybody mention that question. But from our point of view, from the point of view that I just described to you, it's gold because we're making an announcement. We're not taking counting the day as it goes by, another day going by. We're announcing, today's dedicated to Q. Pay attention. Q needs help. Q needs improvement. That's what you dedicate the day to. So it works out very well that way. This is another illustration of how Jewish philosophy works, right? Things from very disparate levels all hang together. They all fall together into a consistent picture. It's one of the things that excited me when I was your age and I was exploring this, since I am a philosopher. Okay, so now let's just take a look briefly at what it is. By the way, there's a book called Usfartem Lechem, written by Rav Daniel Frisch, he was a great Kabbalist. He provided the most popular translation of the Zohar, which exists, the Masuk Midrash, which is used everywhere. And he wrote other Zohar. He wrote this small sefer. I'm trying to think whether it's translated into English or not. I don't remember. First 15 pages, introduction to the Kabbalistic system in general. And then for each day, he tells you what the day stands for, both in Kabbalistic terms and in practical terms, in Musar terms. He's taking this from a much larger work that he says he's quoting from, which is no longer in print. It's called Minchas Haomer. Anyway, so it works out roughly like this. Let's take the first week is Chesed, loving kindness, and let's take to make it easier, Gvura Sheba Chesed. So Chesed is the week, and Gvura is the one day of the week, which is the subcategory of that week. Now, Chesed is loving kindness, and Gvura is strict justice, strict accountability. So, the week tells you what you're aiming at. It tells you what the outcome should be, and the designation of the day tells you what means you are supposed to use to achieve that outcome. So you have a week with a common outcome, but each day you engage different processes in bringing about that outcome. So if you take, for example, I'll go in order now because it's a little easier. Chesed, loving kindness. What do you use to be the means by which you act out loving kindness in the world? Well, first of all, you engage your generosity. And together with generosity, there should be sympathy. In other words, generosity should be other-directed. Rather than, I'm a generous person, and that's my character, and that's my nobility, and I just hand it out. There has to be a sympathy for the other person. You're desperate. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to fulfill for you what your needs are. So your natural love, your natural sympathy, natural empathy with other people should be galvanized, and it should be expressed in the way in which you express yourself generously to the other person. And this is just giving into my background here. There's a very beautiful passage in David Hume where I think he appeals to this sentiment. He says, imagine that you have to deliver a package to somebody, total stranger. And you knock on the door, the person says, yes, so here, I have this package for you. And the person says, oh, I see that I'm going to have to sign for the package. Please come in. I'll be with you in a moment. I'll get my glasses and get my pen, and I'll sign it for you. So you walk in, you sit down, you look around. It's light, it's airy, there's sunshine coming in the windows, the furniture is pleasant, set out in a convenient and comfortable way. There are fresh flowers. Right? How do you feel when you look at the room? You look and think, it's a nice room. It must be nice to live here. It must be nice to spend time here. And part of the reaction of the normal person is to say, how nice for the owner, how nice for the resident. It's a nice place to be. Now, this means nothing to you. You're not going to get a penny out of this sympathy. You're never going to see this person again in your lifetime. So what are you doing? Where is this coming from? It's a natural sympathy to look at something from the point of view of somebody else, to see how it fits him, and to be pleased by the fact that it will please him. That's a kind of natural empathy. And I think the observation here is true. Could there be exceptions? Yes, and there are psychopaths and so forth and so on. I'm aware of that. But I think it is a natural reaction that a person has to it. And chesed b'chesed would be roughly using these natural attachments and natural sentiments to be then the motivator of expressing the loving kindness to the other person. That would be chesed b'chesed. There's an infinity more to say, and a lot more deeper things to say. But I'm just illustrating the idea. Now let's take the next one as a contrast. Gvura shebachesed. Gvura is strict accountability. Strict accountability. I'm in this world. I'm a creature. The Creator gives me everything that I have, my life, my energy, my understanding, my vitality, and my resources. The Creator says, listen, I give you these resources as work tools, not as enjoyments. And I have an assignment for you how you should use them. And in particular, a certain proportion of your resources should be used for loving kindness. Yes, sir. It's your world. I'm your creature. The resources are your resources. I will follow orders. Now, one of the orders is, somebody comes to the door, help him. Smile. Express empathy. Yes, sir, I will do that. Make him feel loved. I can do that. I know how to do that, to make him feel loved. Do I love him? Maybe not. But I know how to make him feel loved. And that's what I'm supposed to do. Make him feel appreciated. I know how to do that. And I follow orders. I do what I'm told, carefully. There, the motivating factor is gevura, not chesed. But gevura requires an expression in chesed because that's one of my responsibilities. So that's a very different attitude towards chesed. The recipient may not know the difference. Between number one and number two, when he comes to the door and you greet him, he may not know who's talking to him, whether the person is it Abraham or an Isaac. In both cases, the person is going to be overwhelmed with the kindness he receives. Now, you go down through the other five. There are different ways of implementing kindness, of motivating kindness, of activating kindness. So you have a sevenfold expression of kindness touching the various parts of the normal personality in a kind of complete performance. And then the next week is gevura, and each one is motivated by one of the seven. All the combinations work out. And now you understand very well the difference between A and B versus B and A. One is the goal and the other is the means. And that's how you go through the 49 days, each day, and he gives you practical, Rabbi Frisch gives you practical advice on each day, what you should do, including Kabbalistic symbolism, use your right hand or your left hand, so forth and so on. It's a wonderful book, it's a wonderful sefer. And then, when you've gone through the 49, so then the gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you on the night of the Seder, where he lifted you up and made you feel complete and whole and integrated and focused, now you have produced it for yourself. Not with yourself. Of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps with everything you do. But it's a result of your efforts, and then you're ready for Shavuos. Because in Shavuos, you have to receive the Torah. And the HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives, and we receive, and those are two different actions which are coordinated with one another. Neither one can be. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not imposing it on us; He's giving it to us, and we're receiving it. That's what we bring ourselves to by the count of the 49 days. So that's what's going on the surface when we're counting Sefira. So this should hopefully orient you for the counting of the Sefira, and also stimulate to look elsewhere in other sources as well. Yeah.
So I always poorly understood Kedusha as separateness, which might make me think that it was just freedom from all sin or so on. You've instead stated that there is a stage that is explicitly to be cleansed. So what's Kedusha? What's
Kedusha? Okay, this is a very important question. And I say over and over again, and I'm sure it's boring to hear, that this is infinite and endless, especially Kedusha. But I can say a few things about it. And as I always say, ask other people, you'll get other material, which will be very helpful as well. People talk about Kadosh meaning Nivdal, separated from. That's true, but it's only half the story. It's separated from one thing by being separated to something else. It becomes separated from by being attached to in such a way that it's thereby different from other things which aren't attached to. And all the way through, it's, of course, attachment to something higher than yourself. And in our case, it's attachment to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And everything that's called Kadosh has that character. Let's take a korban, an animal or wine or oil that's going to be used, or even water that's going to be used on the altar. Right? So it's set aside to be used on the altar, and therefore you can't have any material benefit from it, or any other alternative benefit from it, because it's set aside to be used on the altar. the Kohen has special kedusha because he's designated as the one who's going to carry out the sacrifices in the temple, and therefore he has certain prohibitions. So they say kedusha always is associated with prohibitions. Prohibitions in what he does because of his being set aside to do the service in the temple. Same with a Levi. Same with Yisrael. A Jew has special responsibilities in the world above and beyond non-Jews. His kedusha entails that he's different from everybody else in the world in that he has a myriad of mitzvahs that bind him and that requires performance that other people don't have. Same with, let's say, tefillin or mezuzah or sefer Torah. They're kadosh. They can't be used for any other purpose. They have to be treated with a certain type of respect and honor because they're set aside for these particular mitzvahs to do. The land of Israel. The land of Israel is kadosh in that it's different from all the other lands in the world, metaphysically. We've spoken about this a number of times, and has a myriad of mitzvahs that are associated with it, which mean that when you live there, you can't live the way you would live anyplace else. You're required to live in it in terms of its higher status. So kadosh doesn't only mean, or primarily mean, separated from. Kadosh primarily means separated to. And then because it's separated to, and other things aren't separated to, they are differentiated from this one which is separated to. Now, the greatest possible problem is that the word kadosh is used for a Kodesh Baruch Hu also. And it's going to be very difficult to apply this concept to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Okay, nivdal from, that's easy, right? He's transcendent. He's not even spiritual, right? Spirituality is a creation. It's not even spiritual. It's beyond even spirituality. Okay, beyond. That's very nice. But if I tell you that kedusha means separated to, and in particular separated to something higher, with respect to the Creator, that's going to be a bitter pill to swallow, right? It's going to be very difficult to explain that. And here you have an opening to the Kabbalah. You have an opening to the Kabbalah. Because according to the Kabbalah and according to the great philosophers like Maimonides and others, we don't speak about Kodesh Baruch Hu at all. We don't speak about the Creator at all. The Creator is beyond all conception, all categorization, all description, all human language, and all human thought. What we talk about are ways in which the Creator interacts with the world. And there are numerous ways in which He interacts with the world. And the different names that we use to refer to Kodesh Baruch Hu describe different ways in which He interacts with the world. Sometimes they double up. And when you talk about the Kodesh Baruch Hu, Kiviyachol, in the verse in the Torah, the Zohar will ask, which one? Not because we're polytheists, but because the name has to be describing one of the ways in which He interacts with the world. Okay, so now, if that's the case, when you say Kadosh, holy, you're talking about one of the ways in which He interacts with the world. Okay, those ways are in a hierarchy. They're in a hierarchy. And then Kadosh could describe the way in which this one relates to the one above it. Because there is something above this particular means of interaction. And this is exactly the way the Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, describes it in a letter in his collected works. There are excerpts from letters that he wrote, philosophical excerpts. And he says, I'll define the word kadosh for you in 2 words. Kadosh means bo kodesh. How to pack a whole philosophy in 3 words. Kadosh is an adjective. Kodesh is a noun. To say that something is kadosh means that there's something holy, kodesh, holiness above it, and the one below has a relationship with the one above it, so that the one above can project into the one below. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is associated with a relatively low element on this hierarchy, because it's talking about how it's related to the thing or things above it. And he points out in that letter that what we take for granted as the translation, Hebrew and Aramaic, isn't so. Because you have Hakadosh Baruch Hu in Hebrew and you have Kuch Baruch Hu in Aramaic, they are not the same. Because Kucha in Aramaic isn't Kadosh, it's Kodesh. So Kucha Baruch Hu and Hakadosh Baruch Hu say different things. One ascribes the quality of being holy, and the other requires holiness, possessing. One describes possessing the quality, and the other describes being the quality. They're on different levels. And the Aramaic is a higher description. So that's the best that I can do for Kadosh. Doing it analogously, like one more little tiny hara, and I'll take your question. This is a project, because there are words that describe both God and man. We should be surprised about that. If you had a principle told to you about Judaism, describe God and man, can't have the same vocabulary. One is infinite and transcendent and limitless and so on, whatever those words mean, and we're entirely different. How could the same vocabulary treat both of them? You'd nod your heads, you say, yeah, right, of course, got it, definitely right. Now when you're told the opposite, you should be surprised. Wait a minute, Kadosh applies to both. Gibor applies to both. Chesed applies to both. How does that work? How come it is that way? And the first time this appears in the Torah, which I think so, is in the Sefiras Dibros, where it says, you know what you should do on the seventh day? Stop creative physical activity. You know why? Because that's what the Creator did. You should say, really? That's why I should do it? I should do it because the Creator did it? Hello, what relationship do I have to what the Creator did? Yeah. You can. That's what it means to be created. B'Tselem Elokim. Okay. The words, but then you have to look for the definitions. To look for the definitions to see whether they can be applied across the board. Gibor hakoveshes yitzro. Person's a gibor because he conquers his own spirit. To say he conquers his own spirit means there's an internal battle going on. There's an internal inconsistency. One part is against the other part. One part conquers the other part. Could you say that about God? So the knee-jerk reaction is, of course not. He's one, completely simple, no parts, no nothing. Okay, but then the word Gibor is used, and then the Kabbalah becomes marching in. What he is. But we don't talk about that. We talk about the various types of interaction that he has in the world. And the types of interaction in the world could conflict with one another. And sometimes they can't both be true. And one has to overcome the other. And the word Gibor can apply there directly and literally. That's a big advantage philosophically. That the words that are used in our tradition, both for God and man, can be used with the same definition. That's a big advantage. That's one of the things that the Kabbalah is accomplishing. So the Kabbalah has a deep philosophical project, hey? It's not just numbers and mysticism and, drinks of whiskey and dance around the fire. It has a deep philosophical project, many deep philosophical projects. That's a little appreciation for what the Kabbalah is doing. Sorry, yeah.
So we identified three necessary conditions for the word Kadosh Toshvar. Separated from, and separated to. Or separated from, to, and something above.
Two, yeah, okay. You can call it three, okay.
So, just on the last one, on something having to be above, why does the root, at least, of Kof Dalet Shin apply to Kalayim? In Kalei Kerem in the Mishnah, when it refers to something as when you accidentally play
pentik dash.
So it refers to the Isser, the produce that now you have to destroy, as Kidesh.
Yeah, you could have asked better than that. What about Kadesha?
Say it.
I think it's Rav Hirsch, among others, points out that there are words in Hebrew which take opposing meanings. Like shorish means root, and l'sharesh means to uproot. Not to plant, but to uproot. If I told you to root something, I would think you'd think it means plant it in the ground and make sure it's holding on. But l'sharesh can mean to uproot. So I think here what's happening is that the shorish is being used in its bare meaning of set aside, and set aside in a very, very drastic way, because in Kilayim, you can't use it for anything. It's forbidden to have any benefit from it whatsoever. So if it comes out planted that way, you've lost it. It's completely cut off. Much like, for example, a sacrifice is cut off. There's nothing you can do with it except offer it as a sacrifice. Here you burn it up. Question: what do we do when you're burning it up? Just destroying it, or whether that's secret? That's the deeper question. And Kadesha also is someone who's going to be excluded from society because of the loose behavior. He's not going to be able to play a role of a constructive role in society. It would just be ostracized.
Extreme upper separation, and therefore when they use it in the, I want to call it ironic sense of the root, but it's probably a better lashon, it could also be an extreme down.
I think that's right. It's cut off. It means cut off. Yeah.
Oh, just a hand on the head.
What's that?
Just a hand on the head.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, I heard something like that. Like when you have chavrutas, it's a good practice to have one that's at your level, one below your level, and then one that's above your level.
Oh.
So similarly, when you have someone that's above your level, they get to pass the knowledge down to the one that's below, and it reminds me of what you were just talking about.
It's a very interesting thought. If you are in a position where you could have three different chavrusas, which sometimes you are, I think that's right. And that triple variety would be very, very good, because part of your own development is passing it down to others, whatever level you're on, whatever level. And when I was first in yeshiva here many years ago, about 106 years ago, I learned a piece of Gemara, and I was very proud of it. I was very happy with it. When I went back to university, anybody who would sit down and listen to me for a half hour, I would explain it, with great thrill and great joy. 5 years later, I found out that I had wrong shot. Wrong shot! It was wrong! I said, taught it wrong! Okay, so the Gemara says, the only way you come to ultimately master the Torah is by failing and falling and then picking yourself up. So I can say, okay, I fell. I'm very happy. No, okay. So I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. Now, finally, I promised to answer his question, so let me talk a little bit about Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer, when all the ecology people, take out their self-righteous virtue signaling critique and say you're lighting fires and greenhouse gases and all the rest. Okay.
What is this?
Well, it's the 33rd day of the Omer, and it's the anniversary of the death of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the one who, the last 2,000 years, he brought great measures of Jewish Kabbalah into the world. And it's commemorated by lighting fires that night. Everywhere, everybody lights a fire. The kids all gather for weeks and weeks, and they have competitions who has the biggest fire. Okay. Terrible thing. Imagine you look at it from space, you see the planet going up in flames. Well, I guess the Jews, who are 0.001% of the population, are going to make the planet go up in flames. Okay, but still. What's going on? So I'll tell you what's going on. Elisha was the disciple of Elijah. And Elijah told Elisha, I'm leaving the world. So Elisha said, I want a blessing from you that I should have double your spirit. And man, talk about extravagance, double the master's spirit. So Elijah said to him, if you see me leaving, then you'll have it. And in fact, Elisha saw Elijah go up in a fiery chariot, as the Tanakh says, to heaven, out of sight. What's going on? Why should his seeing it? Why should it be double, and so on and so on? The explanation given is this. You live in this world, and your ability to absorb and to understand and to express godly spirituality is limited. It's designed to be limited. It's limited in particular by the fact that you have to be constantly expressing your bodily embodied state, whereas when the soul is disembodied for a period of time, it has much more open access, and therefore it's limited. In the next world, even in the interim period, the body doesn't play that kind of role, so that in that interim period, the soul can receive measures of divine spirituality which you couldn't receive in this world. Now when someone's dying, he's crossing over. And as he crosses over, the increase in his receptivity grows gradually during that period. And that's what Elisha said. That's what Eliyahu said to Elisha. If you see me going, then by the fact that you see me going, you'll be able to receive from me spirit that I didn't have all the rest of the time that I was alive. Because I'll have more spirit then. And then you'll receive double the spirit that I had when I was alive. And he saw him. Right? Now the Zohar tells us that Shimon Bar Yochai, on the day that he died, communicated a piece of the Zohar that was absolutely unique to that time. It's called the Idrizuta. And there's certain ideas there that don't appear anywhere else in the whole Zohar. By the way, just to correct the misimpression, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did not write the Zohar. It's not his book. It says explicitly that it is a record of discussions in his yeshiva, and Rabbi Abba was appointed as the editor of those discussions. Some are long essays, which he wrote, and others are discussions with other people and the statements of other people. And then Rabbi Abba collected it together into the work that we know as the Zohar. At any rate, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, was crossing over. And since he was crossing over, he received something which he couldn't receive at any other time in his life, and he left it for us. Now, the Zohar, the word Zohar means light. It means shining. That's what it means. Okay? So we light fires to symbolize the idea that on this day, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was given a gift of extra light, which he passed on to us in terms of that piece of the Zohar. And we are celebrating that light and think of that light, and we try to use that to appreciate what he left for us. But that's a little bit about Lag BaOmer.
When did Lag BaOmer happen? When was the first year of Lag BaOmer?
Well, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is before the Mishnah, so in round terms, it's about 2,000 years ago, 2,100 years ago, in round terms. So, I wish you, we all say Chag Kasher V'Sameach. There is a cute thing, if you learn it right, you can share it with people, that you should have a Purim Kasher V'Sameach. Purim. You should have a Pesach Sameach V'Kasher, because of all the very difficult preparations for Purim, for the Pesach. You should be Sameach V'Kasher. And you should have a Milchik Shavuos, because in Shavuos we eat milchiks to celebrate the fact that the Torah was given and we couldn't put milk and meat together. And so Fleshik at Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av should be Fleshik. Kodesh Baruch Hu Yitain.